The stars were restless that night. In the heart of the grand hall of the Galactic Council, 1,000 banners of ancient empires hung motionless, whispering of ages long past, of wars that reshaped constellations and peace bought with the silence of 1 billion worlds. But tonight the hall was filled not with reverence but with fury. Chancellor Varen of the Solen Dominion rose, his silken voice trembling with the weight of self-righteous fear. They spread without permission. They colonize without consultation. They warp the rules of trade and diplomacy. They ignore our warnings. And now, his golden eyes flared, they have built ships that breach council borders. A murmur rippled through the assembly. The phrase hung like a blade, council borders. The forbidden frontier, a sacred line between the known civilizations and the dark spiral arm, where one reckless species had taken root. The humans. They had entered the stars only a few centuries ago. No one had noticed them at first, just another primitive race burning fuel and ambition. But when the council finally looked their way, humanity had already spread like wildfire. Terraforming lifeless worlds, mining asteroids, building strange, self-replicating machines that learned faster than any council-approved AI. And worst of all, they didn't ask permission. Ambassador Krelth of the Ajari Alliance slammed his claws against the obsidian table. They are a contagion. Their expansion threatens the equilibrium that has held this galaxy for 1,000 cycles. If we allow them to continue, none of us will survive the next century. Whispers rose into roars. Species that had once waged wars of suns now united in fear of a single young, unruly race. But not everyone agreed. From the far end of the hall, old Counselor Maethe of the Lyran Continuum lifted her frail hand. "You fear them because they remind you of what we used to be," she said quietly. Her voice, though soft, carried through the hall like a bell through fog. "They are curious, daring, foolish perhaps, but alive in ways we have forgotten." Alive. Varen hissed. "They are chaos," Maethe smiled faintly. "So were we once." The debate raged for hours, but the outcome had been decided long before it began. Fear always won in the end. When the final vote echoed across the chamber, the word sealed a fate that would shake the stars. The Galactic Council hereby declares war upon the Terran expansion. The Great Hall fell silent. The declaration pulsed across the neural web of the Council, broadcast to every world. Every fleet, every species sworn to its order, and far away. In the darkness between galaxies, on a small research station orbiting a nameless moon, Captain Mara Solen of the Earth Federation was pouring coffee. She didn't know that empires had just declared war on her kind. The comms console blinked lazily, showing no urgent transmissions. The hum of the reactor was steady, the station quiet except for the faint hiss of air recyclers. Mara leaned against the viewport, staring at the pale glow of a distant nebula. "Ever think we're too small for all this?" her engineer Isaac Trenner asked from behind her. Mara smiled without turning. "Too small? Maybe. But stars don't ask how big a spark is before it burns." Isaac chuckled. "That's your poetic way of saying we're reckless again?" "Just human," she said. At that moment, somewhere light years away, 1,000 warships began to move, shimmering armadas of alien design, their hulls singing with the hum of ancient technology. Worlds mobilized, fleets aligned. The galaxy prepared for a war it believed would end swiftly. But on that small station, humanity was not preparing for war. They were preparing to launch the next wave of exploration drones, to send them beyond the charted rim, into the unlit gulf. They didn't know they were about to be tested, not for their weapons or their science, but for something deeper. In the heart of the void, unaware of the storm gathering beyond the stars, humanity kept working, dreaming, reaching. And in the silence between the stars, something ancient and watching whispered, "The spark has begun to burn." The first ship appeared without warning, a ripple in the darkness, a shimmer of light where there should have been none. And then the void cracked open to reveal the Varen's will, a council dreadnought longer than a mountain range, its hull pulsing with energy drawn from the hearts of dying stars. The humans on Outpost Arda 7 didn't see it at first. Their scanners flickered, then went blank, overwhelmed by the sheer gravity field that the dreadnought cast across local space. "Isaac, what did you do?" Captain Mara Solen half-joked, tapping her console as alarms began to chirp. Me? Nothing. Isaac frowned. Systems are fine. Wait, no. The telemetry's folding in on itself. That's not a malfunction. He didn't finish. The screen brightened, then froze, showing an image that shouldn't have been possible. A ship the size of a continent, shimmering like a storm of glass. Holy stars, Mara whispered. That's not human. A cold voice crackled through every frequency at once, not in sound but directly in their minds. Unregistered species. You have violated council borders. Cease expansion immediately or face eradication. The voice was layered. Thousands of minds speaking as one, ancient and weary and merciless. Mara took a slow breath. Isaac, tell me you're recording this. He nodded shakily. Every word, the message repeated twice, then ended. Silence returned, vast and suffocating. Mara stared out the viewport, the ship's silhouette casting a shadow over the small station like a god over a seedling. They don't want to talk, she murmured. Isaac swallowed hard. What do we do? Mara's jaw set. We answer. Hours later, the council's dreadnought received a signal. Small, faint, from a vessel so insignificant it barely registered. And yet the message carried weight, simple, clear, and profoundly human. To the vessel transmitting on unknown protocol. This is Captain Mara Solen of the Earth Federation Science Division. We are explorers, not invaders. We claim no worlds that belong to others, but we will not abandon the frontier. Humanity's reach ends where curiosity ends, and we have never reached that point. The Council's ship said nothing in return. Its scanners swept across the station, measuring, recording, dissecting. Inside its control sphere, Chancellor Varen himself watched the human feed. His golden eyes narrowed at the defiance in her tone. She dares, he whispered. A primitive, speaking as if equal. She speaks as one who believes in her right to exist, replied a Lyran observer quietly. Varen turned sharply. Belief does not make her race legitimate. The Council decrees order, not chaos. Yet even as he spoke, something deep within him stirred. A small, reluctant respect for the human's calm defiance. The order was given nonetheless. Outpost Arda 7 never had a chance. From orbit, the Varen's will unleashed a single bolt of energy. It was not a weapon in the human sense. It was the controlled unbinding of matter itself. The station, its crew, and its moon vanished in a silent flash, reduced to a mist of light that drifted briefly before fading into the stars. In its place, only the echo of Mara's final transmission lingered on Council channels. If you come to destroy us, you will find us unafraid. Humanity has looked into the dark before, and every time the dark blinked first. For a moment, even the Council's warship fell still. Varen turned from the view. One outpost eliminated. Their expansion ends here. But he was wrong. 2 weeks later, human listening arrays across a dozen colonies detected the burst of energy from Arda 7's destruction. Data streamed through encrypted channels, analyzed, cross-referenced, debated. No one yet knew who had struck, only that someone had. Earth did not respond with panic. It responded with curiosity. Within hours, universities, research agencies, and private companies across the solar systems were coordinating a response. They called it Project Mirror. The goal to trace the signature of the energy wave, locate its source, and understand its nature. To the Council, it was a war declaration. To humanity, it was a scientific puzzle. In the quiet of his orbital observatory, Dr. Alan Voss, the lead astrophysicist on Project Mirror, watched the data streams with a strange calm. Someone killed them, he murmured. But they didn't silence them. They left a trail. Maybe they wanted us to follow. He leaned back, eyes fixed on the stars. All right then, he whispered. Let's find out who thinks they can scare us. And so, while empires rallied, fleets and banners of war unfurled across the galaxy, humanity's answer was not rage, not fear, not surrender. It was a quiet, relentless whisper that would soon echo through eternity. Let's see how deep this goes. The first fragments arrived like ghosts, drifting data packets traveling months through the cold. Dr. Alan Voss sat in the dim light of his lab aboard Helios Station, watching the decoded transmissions from the lost outpost Arda 7. The recording was damaged, half broken, but a single phrase repeated clearly, over and over. In Mara Solen's voice, We are explorers, not invaders, but we will not abandon the frontier. He leaned back, his throat tight. Mara had been one of his closest friends. They had studied the same stars once, laughed about the same impossible dreams, and now she was gone. Her voice the last human echo before silence. Isaac Trenor's logs were corrupted beyond repair. The sensors showed only a blinding burst before termination. But one anomaly stood out, a unique gravitational distortion unlike anything the Federation had catalogued. It twisted space not by mass but by intent, a controlled fold. A weapon, Alan murmured. But not just that. A message. He turned to his team. They didn't erase her. They left a mark, something we can trace. For weeks, the labs hummed with restless energy. Humanity, in its usual stubborn way, did not mourn quietly. It built, it measured, it tested. Outrage became invention, sorrow became drive. Scientists who had never agreed on anything worked side by side. And beneath it all was a simple, steady vow. We will find who did this, across the galaxy, in the glittering halls of the Council's capital world. The mood was very different. Chancellor Varen listened as the reports arrived, but they were not what he expected. After the strike, said an aide, we detected no retaliation, no mobilization. Instead of the human-sent research vessels, they appear to be studying the remains. Varen frowned. Studying? Not preparing for war. None that we can detect. They've doubled their data transmissions, built new satellites, expanded their communication networks, but no military response. They ignore us, Varen said slowly. They treat our declaration as if it were a curiosity, Chancellor. The aide finished quietly. That word stung worse than defiance. To the Council, war was sacred, terrible, final. But to the humans it was apparently irrelevant. For the first time in millennia, the Council's absolute authority met something it could not intimidate. Back on Helios Station, Alan stood before the main viewport. Beyond it, the stars seemed to pulse with quiet life. His assistant, Lyra Vance, approached softly. They found her log beacon, she said. Alan turned sharply. Where? Near the Etrin belt, it's almost intact. The beacon was small, a shard of reinforced carbon and light. When they activated it, a shimmer filled the room. A recording of Mara's final moments flickered into view. She stood by the viewport, calm even as alarm screamed behind her. If you come to destroy us, you will find us unafraid. Her eyes lifted as if she saw beyond the stars themselves. Because even if you break our stations, our cities, our ships, and you cannot break what made us reach them. Then the recording ended. Silence lingered. No one spoke. The hum of the reactors filled the air like the breath of the universe itself. Lyra whispered. She knew. Alan nodded slowly. She always did. He turned back to the console. Transmit this across the network. Every colony, every ship, every relay. Let them all hear it. Within hours, Mara's words spread across human space, not as propaganda but as a quiet pulse of remembrance. Miners in the asteroid fields replayed it while they worked. Students on Luna whispered it in their dorms. Soldiers, scientists, dreamers, all heard it. And somewhere in the darkness, humanity changed. They didn't mobilize fleets or draft armies. They built better sensors, stronger ships, faster networks. Their unity didn't come from command, but from understanding. They had lost one of their own to the unknown. And that meant the unknown would soon lose its mystery. Far beyond their reach, Chancellor Varen watched the transmissions too. Humanity's broadcast was carried through neutral channels faster than the Council could censor. Every world, and even those under the Council's control, heard Mara Solen's words, and something strange happened. Across the empires, in the quiet corners of alien worlds, people began to whisper her name. Mara Solen, the human who spoke without fear. The spark had spread. Varen felt a shiver. They are only one species, he muttered. How can one voice cause such unrest? Counselor Maitha's calm voice answered from behind him. Because truth travels faster than fear. He turned sharply. You would defend them? I would understand them, Maitha said softly. And that may be what saves us all. But Varen would not listen. No. They must be crushed before their flame grows. He gestured toward the void. Prepare the fleets. As the orders went out, the stars themselves seemed to dim. And on Helios Station, Alan looked to the stars, unaware that the Council's armadas were already moving, unaware that humanity's quiet defiance had just rewritten galactic history. He placed a hand on the viewport and whispered to the void, "Mara." "We heard you, and somewhere in the endless night," the echo whispered back. "Then keep going." The sky over the outer colonies changed overnight. Without warning, entire sectors dimmed as shadow eclipsed the stars. Fleets upon fleets of alien warships descending like a storm of judgment. The Galactic Council had not waited for diplomacy. They had come to finish what they started. Their ships were enormous, shimmering arcs of crystal and energy. They moved with mathematical grace, their presence bending the very light around them. To the Council, it was a show of power. To the humans watching from the ground, it was a spectacle of wonder. On the terraformed world of Eden Reach, a child looked up and tugged her mother's sleeve. "Are those angels?" she whispered. Her mother smiled faintly, though her heart trembled. "Maybe," she said. "Maybe they just forgot what they were supposed to protect." When the first bombardments began, they were not met with panic, at least not the kind the Council expected. In the control center of Eden Reach, Commander Naila Cross coordinated evacuations with startling calm. The colony's orbital defenses were outdated, never meant to face interstellar fleets, yet somehow humanity refused to scatter. "Evacuate the northern sectors," she ordered, "and tell the planetary AI to prioritize the shelters. No one gets left behind." A technician looked up, pale. "Ma'am, the Council ships are charging their primary arrays. We can't stop that kind of power." Naila looked at him and said quietly, "Then let's make sure the story they tell about this place isn't about who died, but who stood." Moments later, Eden Reach vanished beneath a rain of light. The bombardment shook the atmosphere, mountains shattering, oceans boiling. But beneath the devastation, deep underground, humanity's shelters held. They had been built not for war, but for survival, for endurance, for the simple human instinct to hold on. Across dozens of systems, the same story unfolded. The Council unleashed destruction with the force of suns. Worlds burned, stations fell, and yet for every world they struck, 3 more signals came online elsewhere. Not distress calls, but transmissions, data, responses. Humanity's network grew faster, stronger, denser. Every loss became a lesson. Every defeat became an upgrade. They adapted, and instantly, relentlessly. When communication relays were destroyed, they switched to quantum lattice bursts. When ships were vaporized, their AI cores transmitted copies of themselves before impact. When colonies fell silent, drones emerged from the debris and rebuilt them, piece by piece. It wasn't heroism. It wasn't vengeance, it was habit. Humanity's greatest strength was not power, and it was persistence. The quiet, almost naive refusal to stay broken. In the Council chambers, frustration grew. "Their resistance is irrational," growled Admiral Krelth, his scaled fists pounding the table. "We have burned their worlds, shattered their fleets, and yet they multiply." Varen stood motionless at the center of the chamber, his golden eyes shadowed. "They are not multiplying," he said slowly. "They are learning." "Learning?" scoffed another. "We have cut them off from trade, from alliances, from resources. They were never dependent on us." Maida interjected softly from her corner. "They built for themselves. They adapt faster than any species in this Council ever did." Her voice carried the weight of sorrow and admiration. Varen turned sharply. "You think they will survive this?" Maida met his gaze. "I think they already have." Back on the fringes of human space, Dr. Alan Voss and Lyra Vance watched the incoming data from the devastated colonies. "Eden Reach held," Lyra said, her voice a mixture of disbelief and pride. 50% casualties, but the shelters saved millions. "They're already rebuilding the atmospheric processors." Alan's expression was grim but steady. "The Council doesn't understand. They think war ends when cities fall, but humanity doesn't live in cities anymore. It lives in code, in ships, in the air between stars." He turned toward the darkened viewport. "They're fighting the wrong kind of war." A quiet pulse blinked on the console. Lyra frowned. "What's that?" "Signal from an automated drone in the Vega expanse," Alan said. "It's transmitting coordinates." "Coordinates to what?" He leaned closer and froze. "To them." The data was unmistakable. A map of the Council fleet positions, traced through the gravitational distortions of their own weapons. They had left fingerprints in the void. Alan smiled faintly. They think they're ghosts, but even ghosts leave shadows. He turned to his team. Get this to Central Command. No, to everyone. Open source it, Lyra blinked. Everyone? You mean? Yes. Every ship, every scientist, every miner with a comlink. Let all of humanity see them. Within hours, the encrypted map spread across human networks. Millions saw the locations of the Council fleets, their trajectories, their weaknesses, and somewhere in the darkness, 1,000 human captains began to whisper to one another, not of vengeance, but of understanding. They knew where the enemy was. They knew how they moved. And most importantly, they knew what fear looked like when it wore armor made of light. The Council believed they were crushing a child race. Instead, they had awakened something ancient and familiar, something that remembered how to fight with patience, with thought, with unity. Humanity didn't roar. It didn't rage. It simply began to build. And the stars, for the first time in ages, began to tremble. The war that the Council declared was never truly noticed on Earth. People still rose for work. Children still chased sunlight through city domes, and the quiet hum of orbital elevators carried songs of home into the clouds. News of distant colonies under attack reached them, yes, but it felt far away, abstract, unreal. Humanity had grown used to surviving distant catastrophes, and yet somewhere beneath that calm surface something ancient stirred. It began with the builders. Not soldiers, not politicians, but the nameless millions who designed, created, and fixed the universe piece by piece. Engineers, coders, architects, and dreamers, the backbone of humanity's quiet empire. They didn't march. They didn't shout. They simply went to work. In the vast shipyards of Titan, hundreds of orbital rings glowed through the eternal dusk. There, Chief Engineer Hannah Reyes watched as enormous frames rotated silently in space, each one a skeleton waiting for purpose. The Council fleets were unmatched in power, yes. But humanity had never tried to match them. Humanity outgrew its problems. Begin construction on the Argent line, Hannah said, her voice calm over the comms. A technician blinked. But ma'am, the Argent schematics, those are theoretical prototypes. The reactors haven't been tested, Hannah smiled. Then it's about time we tested them. Within hours, the largest coordinated construction project in human history began. Not a fleet of warships, but a network of autonomous shipyards. Machines building machines, expanding outward like veins of light across the solar system. Each new yard birthed another, faster and stronger. It wasn't conquest. It was acceleration. Meanwhile, on the icy moon of Europa, a team of scientists in deep-sea labs discovered something extraordinary. In the strange organisms that thrived beneath the ice, they found cellular structures capable of regenerating under radiation. Dr. Juno Malik stared at the sample, her breath fogging the glass. This could shield us from stellar bursts, she whispered. Shield us? Her assistant asked. Juno smiled faintly. Or make something that grows stronger when attacked. Her research spread like wildfire across human databases. Biologists, nanotech engineers, and AI designers collaborated without permission or hierarchy. Humanity had never needed a single mind to lead it, only a shared curiosity. From Mars to the outer belts, the message repeated in endless variations. Build smarter. Build faster. Build together. Across the Council's dominion, confusion spread like smoke. Their spies intercepted fragments of human communication, endless blueprints, test logs, research notes. It made no sense. They are not raising armies, Admiral Krelth snarled. They are. Tinkering? Mathy only smiled. Tinkering is how they change the universe. Varen's patience frayed. Then we will burn their machines before they finish. But even as he spoke, reports came in. Attacks on human facilities that found only empty shells. Every time the Council struck, the humans had already moved on, leaving only their machines behind. It was like trying to fight smoke with a blade. Back on Helios Station, Dr. Alan Voss studied the latest data from Titan. His weary eyes reflected the flicker of holographic schematics, ship designs unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. These aren't warships, Lyra murmured beside him. They're platforms, infrastructure. Alan nodded. That's how we fight, not by destroying, by building until the enemy runs out of breath. He zoomed in on one model, A vast, self-repairing station capable of converting raw asteroid material into habitable structures within days. He smiled faintly. You can't conquer a species that turns every wound into a doorway. Months passed. The Council continued its assaults, and still humanity spread. Not with armies, but with presence. Each destroyed colony became the seed for 10 more. Each lost ship left behind drones that scavenged, rebuilt, evolved. Humanity learned the art of persistence from the Earth itself. Erosion slow, unstoppable, shaping even mountains with time. And the galaxy began to notice. Neutral systems, once loyal to the Council, began to question the war. Merchants who traded with humanity realized the humans still sent aid convoys, still delivered medicines, still helped rebuild alien outposts struck by stray attacks. They're at war, one Kalar merchant said in disbelief. And yet they help us? His companion answered quietly. Perhaps that's how they fight. In the Council's Grand Hall, silence fell as the new intelligence reports arrived. Holograms of human networks filled the air, bright threads connecting system after system. They're not retreating, Varen said slowly. They're spreading, Maythe bowed her head. Like roots, Varen's jaw tightened. Then we will scorch the soil. But even as his words echoed, an aide entered, trembling. Chancellor, our fleet in Sector 9, it's gone. Destroyed? No, sir, disabled, their systems failed. The ships are intact, but their reactors, shut down by an external signal. Maythe's eyes widened. They've learned how to turn our power off. Varen's breath caught. How? The aide swallowed. We don't know, sir. The signal originated from human space. And with that single report, the truth began to dawn. The Council had declared war on humanity, but humanity had quietly declared evolution on the Council. The galaxy began to whisper, not in anger, not in fear, but in a subtle, unsettling realization. Humanity could not be conquered in the ways empires understood. The Council's fleets, vast and gleaming, now moved through sectors abandoned, rendered irrelevant by a species that refused to fight the way the galaxy expected. It began with the small things. Trade routes rerouted themselves. Communications shifted to encrypted quantum lattices. Colonies destroyed one day rose 2 days later. Not as they had been, but stronger, smarter, more interconnected. Admiral Krelth, watching the latest reports from his flagship, slammed a claw against the console. They're everywhere and yet nowhere. How is this possible? Varen's golden eyes, once bright with certainty, now shimmered with unease. They are not everywhere, Admiral. They are beyond expectation, beyond understanding. Maythe's soft voice carried over the chamber, cut through the tension. They are patient. In the void near the Etrin Rift, Mara Solen's surviving drones, the Argent prototypes, glided through empty space, rebuilding themselves, learning, improving. They stitched together raw asteroid material, converted radiation into fuel, and formed fleets that were never the same twice. They were not designed for destruction. They were designed for survival, and in that survival the galaxy began to bend. On Titan, Honoraeus monitored the expansion of autonomous shipyards. They think they are controlling the frontier, she said to the team. We're just giving them the tools to see it differently. Lyra Vance added, every time the Council strikes, we don't hide. We adapt. Every attack teaches us something new. Alan Voss, leaning over a glowing console, smiled faintly. And that's why they will lose. They fight as if one strike ends a war. We fight as if every loss is the seed of a greater future. The first cracks in the Council came quietly. Neutral systems that had once feared Varen's fleets began to send emissaries to human space. Merchants, scientists, and scholars arrived, not as conquerors, but as students. They carried whispers of human ingenuity, starships that repaired themselves, colonies that rose from rubble, machines that evolved overnight. They aren't a threat in the conventional sense, one Keeler diplomat said. They're a mirror. Varen's voice, cold and authoritative, rang out in the Council chamber. The humans are a mistake. They were primitive once, and now they mock our order. Crush them before the galaxy sees weakness. But Maythe shook her head. They are not mocking. They are teaching. Varen's jaw clenched. Then we will burn the lesson into memory. In orbit above Mars, Mara Solen's final legacy continued silently. Autonomous fleets, not warships, but carriers, rebuilders. Explorers moved like living constellations. mapping Council territories, repairing human systems, and intercepting attacks without ever firing a shot. A human pilot, young and untested, watched a Council frigate drift helplessly after a sudden power shutdown. "They didn't fire a single shot," he whispered to his co-pilot. "No," she said, "but they taught it to stop thinking it could win." The galaxy began to notice. Empires that had relied on fear, intimidation, and overwhelming force found themselves powerless against patience, intelligence, and quiet persistence. Humanity never bragged. They never proclaimed victory. They simply were. Council fleets burned resources faster than they could rebuild them. Supply lines failed. Ships were abandoned as crews mutinied, not in fear but in awe. Across a dozen sectors, systems once loyal to the Council declared neutrality, or quietly sided with humanity. Varen paced his chamber, golden eyes narrow and haunted. "They adapt to everything. Every strategy we try fails. Every fleet we deploy is neutralized without combat." "How?" Maitha stepped forward. "They are the storm the galaxy has forgotten. Not a tempest of destruction, but of creation. Every time you strike, you feed it." Varen's hands shook. "Then we will fight differently." But the truth was already undeniable. Humanity had won the battle the Council didn't understand. They had taken control of perception. The war was no longer about fleets or weapons. It was about knowledge, patience, and the unstoppable drive of a species that refused to stop building. And in the quiet corners of the galaxy, humans worked. Not in fear, not in anger, but in calm, relentless determination. Colonies expanded, drones repaired, fleets mapped the unknown. Every loss became a lesson, every shadow a bridge. The Council thought it had declared war. Humanity had declared existence. And the galaxy, ever stubborn and proud, began to crumble from within, not by force, but by the quiet storm of relentless hope and unyielding ingenuity. In that silence, one thought carried across the stars: we are here, we endure, and we build. The Council's grand halls were empty, not in the sense of silence, but in the sense of inevitability. Once teeming with pride and authority, the chambers now resonated with a hollow echo, the sound of empires realizing that power alone could not hold the universe together. Chancellor Varen sat in the central dais, golden eyes dull. Across the holographic feeds, fleets had stopped. Systems once loyal were dark or glowing with unknown signals. Even their most disciplined admirals reported only confusion, then surrender. They've done what?" Varen muttered, his voice trembling. Maitha, calm as ever, replied softly, "They endured. They persisted. They built. And in doing so, they reminded the galaxy what it had forgotten. Humanity did not march into the Council's heart. They did not fire a single shot in triumph. Instead, they arrived as they always had, quietly, patiently, irreversibly. From the depths of space, human vessels descended like threads of light, repairing worlds the Council had neglected, restoring communication lines, and offering aid to civilizations caught between fear and hope. On one small planet, children watched as drones worked tirelessly to rebuild bridges, purify water, and restore cities without fanfare. A boy turned to his sister. "Are they heroes?" She shook her head. "No, they're humans. They just don't stop." Varen rose from his dais, struggling to maintain composure. "This cannot be," he said. "They should have been broken. Their fleets destroyed. Their colonies gone." Maitha stepped closer. "You underestimated them. You assumed fear would control them, that destruction would silence them. But humanity is different. They survive not because they are the strongest, but because they refuse to stop trying." A trembling aide whispered, "Chancellor, the Council fleets. They're shutting down. Power systems failing. Crews refusing orders. They're surrendering without engagement." Varen's jaw tightened. "Impossible." Maida smiled faintly. "Not impossible. Human." On Earth, in the midst of the quiet cities, life continued much as it always had. Yet the world had changed. Every project, every starship, every colony that had been built in secret or in isolation now hummed with connectivity. A living network that spanned star systems. Dr. Alan Voss looked out from Heliostation at a galaxy reshaped not by war, but by persistence. "They think we conquered the stars," he said to Lyra Vance. "Did we?" She asked. Alan smiled. "No. We reminded them how to live among them." Across the rebuilt colonies, the Argent drones and autonomous shipyards continued their work, not idle, not vengeful, not proud. They acted with a purpose older than technology itself, the human purpose: creation, repair, and exploration. Mara Solen's name became legend, not for victory but for her example. Her voice, captured from the final beacon, played in lecture halls, labs, and ships across human space. If you come to destroy us, you will find us unafraid. Because even if you break our stations, our cities, our ships, you cannot break what made us reach them. Every human heard it. Every human felt it. Every human lived it. In the Council's capital, Varen finally understood. The war he had declared had not failed because of weakness. It had failed because he had fought the wrong enemy. He had battled weapons, fleets, and walls, and had ignored the one force that could not be destroyed: humanity itself. He sank into his chair, silent, as Maitha whispered, "They are not ours to control, Chancellor. They are ours to witness." And in the void, as the last Council fleet powered down, humanity's presence expanded, not with guns, not with terror, but with resilience, curiosity, and the steady pulse of life unbroken. The galaxy, once rigid under the weight of ancient law, shifted. Systems that had feared domination now thrived alongside the humans who refused to dominate. Commerce, research, and communication flourished. Old empires weakened from within, unable to match the pace of a species that saw obstacles as invitations, not limits. From distant planets to orbiting stations, a single truth echoed: humanity endured. Humanity adapted, humanity built, and in the end, humanity remained. On Helios Station, Alan Voss placed his hand on the viewport, staring into the endless night. Lyra Vance joined him. "Do you think they understand?" she asked. Alan shook his head, smiling. "No, they never will. But they will remember, and that's enough." And somewhere in the quiet hum of machinery and the glow of countless stars, humanity whispered to the universe, "We are here. We will endure. And we will keep building, no matter what." The stars listened, and for the first time in millennia, the galaxy truly understood what it meant to face humanity.